to be a space station.
Kenner is one of the greatest toy companies ever. Some would even argue Kenner is the greatest toy company. Not to take away from Centurions, Mask, DC superheroes, or Jurassic Park, but Kenner was most known for Star Wars. And what they did with Star Wars was make great toys with great action features and some of the best playsets. Today we're going to talk about the Kenner Vintage Death Star, all of the functions that it has, and at the end of the video we're going to talk about this 9 Death Star project that launched the Titanium Hangar channel. This project back in November of 2016 was the first project that I started talking about on the Titanium Hangar channel. We're going to get back to that coming up. So we're going to go ahead and get started with an overview of this set, and it looks pretty good from the outside. The cardboard adds that extra little touch of paint that they would have had to put on, plastic, and saved on cost a bit, but the cardboard doesn't last, and that's the downside to it. But you have to admit it does look pretty good. Starting at the top, you see the gunning station, and then at the bottom, you see the trash compactor. Now on the inside there are 4 different levels, starting at the bottom where you have the trash compactor, moving up to the second level where you kind of have a control room, moving up to the place where they swing across that, have the retractable bridge there, and then of course the very top you have the gunning station. It's all connected by this elevator right here. The elevator goes up to all 4 levels, starting at the ground level, moving up, and it locks in position depending on which level you are on. Simply have to lock this guy in position. Everything's easier said than done. Now starting at the top here, you can see that we have the gunning station, and I have put the Imperial Gunner on there, but a lot of people put a Stormtrooper on there because that's what they had in 1978 when the set came out. It was 1985 when we got the actual gunner. But looking at this gun, it has an exploding mechanism, and it also can pivot, and it was held in place by friction, but over the years they all get loose. Also looking at this gun, look at the tips of the gun. If you're collecting this and you're wanting to pick one up, the tips, you have to have all of the extra little pieces on the tips because they break off very easy. There are so many little tips on your gun. Let's look at this feature now. I'm not going to explode it because I don't want to break it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press down on it, slide this lever, and lift up. Now normally it would just shoot up and then fall over. I don't want to do that because of course that would break it. So slide this lever over, press down, and there it is. Now I have, out of 17, I only have like 4 that work. So that's a challenge. Moving to the back, this top level, you actually have a place for Obi-Wan Kenobi. This is where he deactivates the tractor beam so that they can escape from the Death Star. You probably see most people who have this set displaying Obi-Wan Kenobi hanging off the back of the Death Star. Moving down to the next floor, we're going to move the elevator down, and you can have a figure in there going from floor to floor. The big thing about this floor, there's a couple of things. First off, you see the back of this cardboard shows some sort of screens and stuff going on, something that you would expect to see inside the Death Star. And you've got Leia and Luke trying to swing across this chasm. Now I want to talk to you real quick about this swing rope, which it works, but what he's swinging on is a knockoff or a KO or a replacement part. Let's talk quickly about official versus replacement. Now, I've gone on record, I don't care about if I own KO or knockoff or replacement, and in fact, if I can get it real cheap, it's for me to enjoy. The only problem with knockoff or KO stuff is if it's trying to get passed as official. And I would never pass these as official, but if you're trying to find an official one, the color's darker than the KOs or the knockoffs or the replicas that I picked up. Now, I picked these up for like $7 each. An official one now is going for like 40 or 50 bucks for a swing rope, which that's what they're asking. I don't know if they're selling for that or not, but looking at it, it's thicker, it's darker, and it's going to weigh a little more, and it's more flexible. These, I haven't flexed them that hard, but you can tell they have some give. I think they're made of resin, so they would snap on you if you bent them too far. So we're going to take the elevator down to the next level, and I know this is vintage, but I put Tarkin in there. I didn't open up the vintage collection Tarkin and throw it on there. I probably should have, but anyhow, here we go with another scene that you can have going on with the throne room, and well, not the throne room. It's the it's kind of like a control room.
Do you copy?
And has great art on the cardboard, and this cardboard is in pretty good condition. And I used to hate the fact that it had cardboard. I thought it made it cheap, but now I think it was a good idea, and it was good that they did it. You have control panels where people could be working, you know, some bad guys and stuff. But the biggest feature of this is the access to the compactor, the trash compactor. Get in there, I don't care what you smell. So taking this all the way down to the lower level. Something's hung up in there. It's on the lower level now. So we have the ground floor or the trash compactor level. Now there's a couple things about this. First of all, this is the door that can be used to get them out. And as you'll see on my big ones, I face this outward and it works fine so that it's a cleaner look. But we're gonna have to kind of pull this out anyway to show you all of the functions. So let's go ahead and do that next. So it just simply slides out. Now a lot of people think you have to lift it up and put it on there. But if you have a flat surface, it'll slide in and slide out, and it works just fine like that. Now, getting into this, there's a couple things you're gonna see. I have a Chewbacca, and my door's wanting to not stay closed all of a sudden. I have the Dianoga's monster here, which is something that's really cool, and it comes only with this set. And these are getting expensive to get simply because it only came with this set, and there really hasn't been another release of this guy. Who knows with Hasbro what they're doing now? They might just release him next year as retro collection. But look at this foam. This is the best foam I've ever seen, and it is official brand new foam, and it looks so good. It's still stuck together. You can tell by this 70s yellow foam that they had going on. And what you do basically is toss your figures in, and you turn this crank, and it closes the door on Chewbacca if it doesn't get hung up somewhere, but that's what it does. That's the whole play gimmick and play feature, and it works pretty good. Now we need to talk about this foam for a minute. So now I've gotten a lot of sets over the years, and this is one of my first original foams I've gotten, and I just thought, wow, that's terrible. I actually ended up picking up some fake foam. You could tell because it's got the pink and the orange, and it's not really the right colors. Those are the right colors. So looking at it, I appreciate that I've got foam that hasn't deteriorated over 40 years, which is, in my mind, impossible unless it was kept in air conditioning, which this set was. But there's nothing wrong with reproduction foam. I mean, it's gonna have the same fond memories if you use original foam. But most original foam's gonna look like this, and I don't even want to touch it. I'm not gonna open it and take it out because it's deteriorated.
That's no moon. It's a space station.
So let's take a look at this Death Star project and building this thing from scratch. One of the things that I had to do was keep track of how many of each part that I had. My ultimate goal was to get enough parts and pieces together so that I could build 9. And so what I would do is periodically take a picture of my inventory, and then that way I could look on eBay and see what parts I was missing and go for another part slot that satisfied some of my holes and helped me achieve this goal. I will be the first to admit that my standards were pretty low for parts. Like, I would get any part I could as long as it worked and it got the job done and it held in place. I was going to live with it. Now, looking at these, as you can see, they're not all super bright white. Some of them are a bit yellowed, and it's just the reality of this. You're going to get a lot of these that are very yellow, dingy, or whatever, but I did take the time to scrub them with soap and water, but I didn't bleach them or anything because at the time I really didn't have a good way to do it. I know there's better solutions now, but back then I just didn't know of any. As you can see, we have varying different levels and degrees of trash compactors. Some don't even have a bottom, but I had to have the exterior door for it to look complete and look right to me. So inside that big 9 Death Stars is a lot of incompleteness, and that doesn't bother me at all. The tower's important. Some of the towers had broken parts and pieces, and of course, if it still held the whole structure together, it would work. But in this scenario, you could get away with a broken tower here and there because it wasn't fully supporting the structure, and you had other tower next to it holding it up. Now, I took this picture here to show you that these tabs, when you build it, these tabs have to be in place. And a lot of times, they're broken, but if you've got 1 or 2 of the tabs, it should work. In some cases, I had all broken tabs. I did what I could. I did have a lot of parts donated to me from my friend Trey, good friend, good buddy of mine, and he wanted to see this project finished. So just getting all the parts together, that was an issue. The next thing I want to talk about is that I put it on this piece of 4x4 board. It's not really plywood, it's something else, but it's pretty thick, it's pretty solid, and I decided to do that actually more or less at the last minute, because once you start building this, you're not going to be able to move it. And I didn't really take that into account. Now, if you have a pretty solid unit, you can move your solid unit around from one place to another. Just pick it up and move it. It's not a big deal. But when it comes to building 9 of them side by side, there's no way. Once you built it, it's stuck there. So I decided I wanted to put it on this so I could at least slide it around that one room. Now, I don't know exactly how this is going to work in the editor, but I am going to advance frame by frame. And this is the building of the Death Star. And I really wanted to put together a pretty cool sort of stop motion type of movie to where you see it getting built and the whole process. So building it took me forever, stopping and taking a picture at each step of the way. So let's see how it looks today. On the top we have the Palitoy Death Star. Now this is a project, and I'll link it down below, that I just basically made it myself. Cost me about $100, maybe $90 or something to make it. The materials and the time. It took quite a bit of time. In fact, if I did another one, I'd probably do a little bit quicker. But the Palitoy Death Star is really cool, and I thought made of cardboard it would just be, junk, but it's really heavy-duty cardboard. And so I put it atop the 9 Death Stars. Simply so, well, I don't have any figures back there, I guess, because I can't really see it, but I put it on the 9 Death Stars just to make it look good. I just sort of round off the top. It gets the job done. Now, why would you want 9 Death Stars in a circle anyway? Well, just because it was something that you can do, and I did it. And you can have a different scene going on in every area here. I like having kind of a shuttle hangar, so it kind of makes sense. Like, hey, this is the shuttle bay, and then over here is the gunning station. That's where the big gun is. And really, I look at it as they have one gun. I know in the film they had multiple guns. But also, I'm looking to do some lighting on the inside here, because it's kind of dark and drab, but it is really cool. All that space in there that could get utilized for something. But I did move a lot of the figures from down here up to here, and when people say, why do you have multiples and multiples and multiples? So if you make a diorama, this just doesn't look as good if you don't have figures in it. And if you have multiple dioramas, then you'd want to have multiple figures for it, right? So getting over down here, I kind of lost my scene, but anyway, they all fell over, but the Emperor in his little scene over here, and all of them have trash compactors, but I like to turn the trash compactors the other way. And the reason I do that is simply so that you have a cleaner look. I mean, I'm not really going to use the play feature on it so much because A, you can't see it, and B, I just won't be doing that. But it's still a lot of fun to look at, and there'll be a lot more updates to this guy as I do more things, such as install lighting and a few other ideas. So here's a shot of my box. My box is not the greatest box in the world, but it gets the job done. And I hope you enjoyed this look at the Kenner 1978 Death Star, one of the greatest play sets that they made, and still one of the best play sets around. You can still pick one up on eBay for a complete one for around $300. You can do what I did, and you could buy part slots for $30 to $60 per part slot, and then you end up building one, but then you have enough parts to almost build another, and it starts to where you end up with 9, so or 17. Anyway, like, subscribe. Let me know what you think about this playset. What playset does Hasbro need to make? Titanium Hanger out.